Hello everyone. Welcome to today's episode of Carbon Experts Live. This is a show produced by One Click LCA to promote sustainable construction and manufacturing featuring industry experts. Today, you will learn about the impact of energy management decisions on environmental sustainability metrics in a conversation featuring Martin, the business unit manager for Terao Asia. Next, please. My name is Mohammed Ali Salim, and I look after the international sustainability communications at OneClick LCA, and I am your host today for today's episode of Carbon Experts Live. I am joined by my colleague Aditi, who is an LCA and equity expert at OneClick LCA, and she would be leading today's discussion with me and Martin. Next slide, please. Before we begin, I will give a quick note to our production team, including April, who is making all the things run smoothly on the background during the 60 minutes, and also Raymond and Abigail, who are LCA experts at OneClick LCA. They will be moderating today's live Q&A session, which takes place at the end of the show. But you can already start putting on your questions in the chat section on LinkedIn, or if you are joining from Livestream, you can put that there. Abigail and Raymond will pipe your questions over to be answered and add to the show. So you can already start putting your questions in the chat. Next, please. So let me start by introducing briefly to Martin, who has joined us today at this Carbon Experts Live episode. Martin is an energy engineer with more than 10 years of experience in energy efficiency and ESG-driven consultancy projects across healthcare, education, retail, office buildings, and industry sectors in France and Asia. During his journey in energy efficiency, Martin has worked in facility management, energy management contracts, and various other projects ranging from energy audits to designing and implementing energy management systems. And he has developed a deep understanding of the challenges and opportunities in this area. So, welcome, Martin, to this episode. Exactly. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you about some housekeeping rules of what can you expect in this episode. So basically, we will start by having a conversation with Martin on how he envisions the future of and trends in sustainability in the APAC region. And then we would invite Martin to answer the questions around today's topic. And finally, we will close with a live question and answer session where Martin and Aditi will take your questions and answer them. So don't forget to submit your questions in the chat, and you can get some amazing answers from both of these experts. Next slide, please. Before our conversation begins, let's have a brief introduction first from Martin himself about his background, about Terao Asia and his work there, and then we will have a short introduction about one vacancy. So Martin, I will turn this over to you to introduce yourself about your work.
Yeah, so thank you, Mohamed. So to give a short introduction on Terao Asia, so Terao Asia is a global building and industry consulting firm. So we are working worldwide. We have branches in South America, in Colombia, one opening in Brazil. Terao Asia has been created 30 years ago, still headquartered in France. We have also a branch in Morocco, and we have quite significant footprint in Asia since we're present in China since 2008. We also have branches in Vietnam, Singapore, Malaysia, and Thailand. So for concerning our expertise, so we have 3 dedicated business units. So one is dedicated to low carbon design and assistance. So how to reduce the carbon footprint of industrial assets or office buildings, any kind of assets. So in this business unit, we work mainly on the operational carbon footprint and embodied carbon footprint to optimize the carbon footprint. Then second business unit is about energy efficiency and sustainable operations. So on this business unit, we work mainly on existing assets. So how to reduce energy consumption, improve the energy efficiency in many different kind of assets worldwide. So we provide services such as energy audits, feasibility studies on energy monitoring systems, commissioning services, ISO 50001 assistance. And then, last but not least, the business unit dedicated to green building certification with project manager engineers working on new construction projects, but also assets in operation to get for clients the assets certified on diverse green building standards from the local ones in Asia to the more global ones such as LEED or BREEAM.
Thank you, Martin, for introducing yourself and telling us about your work at Terao Asia. Aditi, can you please let us introduce about One-Click LCA and the expertise you're offering?
Absolutely. Thank you, Mohammed. So hello, everyone. My name is Aditi. I will give you a short introduction about One-Click LCA. So it's the leading construction and manufacturing LCA software around the world. We are present in more than 130 countries, and we cater to basically projects which are involved in buildings, infrastructure, and even manufacturing industries as well. We are a part of many green building associations as well as organizations from around the world. And we have been currently in this particular field for more than 20 years now. Next slide, please. So One-Click LCA is a global platform, and it supports basically more than 60 plus certifications from around the world. And we also have a huge and robust database of more than 130,000 data sets. In addition to that, we also make sure that we have compliancy tools that we can also offer to our clients as well in order to help them complete the LCA assessments, whether it's on a building or infrastructure or even a product level as well. And then we have the software that is provided in more than 10 languages around the world. So yeah, that's a short introduction about One-Click LCA. I guess I can continue from here as well. So before we begin talking and discussing more on the topic today, I thought it would be also very useful to have a bit of a background for everyone that is joining our live stream from different, wherever you are logging in from around the world. And this will also help us and you provide the context, the definition, and the anchoring information that we need to have in order to have like a productive discussion and conversation moving ahead. Next slide, please. Sorry, the one before. Yeah, thanks. So everyone over here who is joining in is probably more or less aware because these facts have been, there for everyone to see, and they are online. But I thought it would be essential to repeat it once more that constructions, building, and manufacturing create more than 50% of the global carbon. And this basically, as you see, comes from construction processes and transport, from manufacturing processes, from energy intensive materials, and then largely also from energy use in buildings. So it is a huge amount of global carbon that is emitted from the construction industry and that we need to basically address right now. Next slide, please. In addition to this, this is something that is worth addressing, that the global building stock will be doubling in the next 40 years, according to a report from Architecture 2030. And you can see over here where the most amount of construction will be taking place. And that means it's more or less everywhere around APAC and Africa. And this is going to be a huge amount of carbon that will ultimately be, leading towards what we just saw in the previous slide, To give you a bit of a background, so the carbon comes from two sources. One is embodied and one is operational, as you see on the left-hand side graph over there at the bottom. And many people are familiar with operational carbon. It's basically the carbon used in operating or using a building. So things like lighting, heating, ventilation, etc. This is where it comes from. So if I summarize it, the operational carbon of a building is the sum of the carbon that is produced over the lifetime of a building, which is easily about 50 or more years. Embodied carbon, on the other hand, is the carbon footprint of a building, which comes from processes like extraction and production of materials, the transportation of these materials, the manufacturing, the construction itself, and then the demolition and the retrofitting and the end of life deconstruction that happens. So it's basically also termed as upfront carbon that is generated before the building is even used. So, sorry, could you go back? Yeah. So if you look at the graph over there, it's basically what is trying to say is that we are also moving towards addressing the operating carbon issue, where we are looking at, improving and greening our energy grid. And we are making buildings more energy efficient, but that means that we also need to focus on embodied carbon as well, so that we avoid ending up with a huge chunk of embodied carbon that we then cannot, or it's more difficult to handle later on moving forward. So next slide, please. This means that the construction industry has to look at carbon as a whole, and that's why more and more you are coming across carbon being the most important topic all around the world. Here you can see like a slide which shows the scope 1 and scope 2 emissions that are coming from the energy used in construction, process, or buildings. But the green part, which is basically scope 3 emissions, which is also something that needs to be accounted for in the entire footprint of carbon itself. And you can see for different stakeholders within the construction industry, there is a different percentage allocation for both scope 1 and 2 and scope 3. And that's why it's more and more important to address both of them going forward from here on. Thank you. Next slide, please. All right. We can maybe then move to going towards our discussion topic for today with Martin, which is the most important thing that we are all waiting for. So I will maybe start with asking you, Martin, the first question. I think this is going to be a really, really interesting conversation. So my first question to you is, because you're the expert also from the energy, efficiency side, and you've been in the industry for so long. So my first question to you is, what are the changing trends in the field of building and industry sustainability that you have observed so far in Asia Pacific from your own experience?
Yeah, thank you, Aditi, for the background, and very happy to start this discussion with you. So to answer your question concerning the main changing trends in the field of building and industry sustainability in APAC that we can experience in our day-to-day project with our customers, I have identified mainly 3 points. So the first one is that the building industry is moving really from green building certification to more ambitious sustainability targets. Meaning that green building certification have been really growing topic in APAC, such, for example, the LEED standard from the US. This certification will promote sustainable building practices, energy efficiency, and environmental responsibility, and they have become really quite a major topic in Asia. However, now what we noticed, like building owners, they want to have real control over the carbon impact of the projects, and for this, they tend to go further than certification criteria. For example, we have some clients who actually set their own green building standard to meet their sustainability targets that go actually beyond the traditional green building standards. So that's quite changing trends to move really from the green building certification to more ambitious sustainability targets. Second point is about renewable energy integration. Many manufacturers and building owners are investing heavily in renewable energy sources such as solar PV in Asia, for example. And this trend is not so recent, but keeps intensifying by the need to first reduce the carbon emission. For example, many automotive suppliers will have to consume 100% renewable energy by 2025 because it's a requirement from the OEM, the original equipment manufacturer. So as the OEM have the sustainable requirements, most of the suppliers, they will have to comply. So justifying high rate of renewable energy production is really has become actually a competitive advantage. And also to guarantee energy security, energy supply, to be independent from energy shortages happening in some countries in Southeast Asia, for example, or to just have electricity from places not supplied by the grid, such as, for example, hotel resorts on islands, for example. And then last changing trends, which is for me the main obvious in my day-to-day work, is really adoption of smart building technologies, including energy monitoring systems, IoT sensors, and building automation systems. These technologies optimize energy usage, improve building efficiency, and thermal comfort for users. And we can really notice a growing demand, a growing interest from our clients to implement this kind of systems in all sectors, from industrial facilities to office buildings, retail stores, hotel buildings also. And this topic of smart building technology is currently considered both for existing assets already in operation, but also considered for in the design for new construction projects. So these are the three main changing trends. The movement from green building standard to more ambitious sustainability targets, renewable energy integration, and smart building technologies that we identified.
Are there any countries, Martin, that you see are leading the way in the three things that you mentioned around APAC specifically?
Yes, so I would say that countries, for example, such as Vietnam, they are quite advanced, for example, for renewable energy, for example, for solar PV, because the government with regulation really enhanced the implementation of solar PV systems, for example, for buildings. Mm-hmm. I would say that for smart building technologies, it comes mainly from clients. So it can be hotel brands, industrial facilities who have really a global footprint of their real estate portfolio. And so they have the need to monitor their energy consumption from everywhere in the world and to have aggregate data on the real estate. So I would say that this kind of companies are really leading the implementation of smart building technologies, renewable energy. Vietnam and other countries in Asia are quite advanced on this. And for the fact of moving from green building standard to more ambitious sustainability targets, it depends a lot on the company. I cannot identify really a country because it depends more on the type of company and the sustainability targets that they have from the headquarters.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, exactly. And we've also seen, like, in just probably in the last few weeks, where Singapore has also introduced mandating climate reporting as one of the initiatives at a national level, at least.
Yeah.
And I think that should also maybe drive quite a lot of the different stakeholders in Singapore as well.
Yeah, Singapore is taking many initiatives to actually drive sustainability. They have their own green building standard, for example, Green Mark, such as other countries have also in Malaysia, Green in Vietnam, Lotus. And yeah, they are always aiming to improve and to go forward in terms of building sustainability. So it's a very interesting topic interesting country to follow.
And we can actually see that, this is being talked about more and more in Asia Pacific, as you mentioned, from certifications, it's moving more towards what do we do together to achieve that. Absolutely. Okay. I have another question. So the next one I thought of was, you have been involved so much because of your work experience in like the design stage, like from design to post-occupancy stage. So what do you think are the main challenges specifically from your point of view in like when you look at the design stage to ensure energy efficient operations and maintenance that happen in projects that are undertaken?
Yeah. So yes, obviously the design stage is critical, right, to ensure energy efficient operation, to ensure that we have energy efficient buildings in operation. The first challenge is obviously to ensure an integrated design approach. By this, I mean that the absence of close collaboration between architects, engineers, and other stakeholders, like maintenance experts or facility management team of the end user, for example, can lead to missed opportunities for optimizing energy efficiency through building orientation, passive design strategies, and efficient HVAC systems. So that's obviously a key point to ensure energy efficient operations. And then the second challenge that I would identify, I would say, is to avoid in the design stage too much complexity of building systems. Modern buildings often feature complex MEP systems that require careful coordination and management. Ensuring energy efficiency in these systems requires expertise in design, installation, and maintenance to avoid issues leading to equipment inefficiencies. So on my side, I really believe that designing systems that are too complex and require experts and very experienced operators in building maintenance is not worth it. We can never guarantee that the maintenance team will be able to handle the equipment. So I'm more in favor of designing efficient, tried and tested systems based on proven technologies that don't require overly complex controls. But we need to take obviously all the benefits from innovation, right? So it's all about finding the balance between new technologies and innovation and proven and pragmatic technologies. So I would say, for example, on MEP systems, obviously, most efficient mechanical system will maintain high level of energy efficiency in the buildings. That's for sure. Concerning building management system, the BMS is really the critical tool for energy efficient buildings. So it needs to integrate efficient features, to be user-friendly, have robust communication protocols. All the scheduling, set points, etc., should be accessible from the BMS to allow the maintenance team to control the equipment closer to the energy needs of the building. If some features are not available, the most probable is that the parameter will be just overridden by the maintenance team and will operate in the downgraded mode. So in this, we need to give all the keys and trust to the maintenance team on their operations. Comes also when we are talking about design stage, we have MEP, BMS, but also energy monitoring. So yes, monitoring energy and performance metrics is essential for identifying improvement opportunities and detecting energy drifts early on. But sometimes solution is not about setting complex systems of data analysis to detect automatically energy saving opportunities, but it's about installing only the necessary number of submitters on the significant energy use to allow the maintenance team really to focus on the relevant equipment. So monitoring all the circuit power of a building just doesn't make sense for the maintenance team. Too much data is too hard to handle. Too much data kills the data, we say. So the idea is always really to find the balance between all of these topics, which is There is no good answer. It's always, for each project, it's something different.
Yeah.
And and last but not least, to control budget constraints, energy efficient building design measures will imply higher costs, which can be a constraint for developers and clients. So it's always important to consider the long-term savings and return investment provided by energy efficient design, but always the budget can be a topic.
And would you say this would be applicable also in the post-occupancy stage? Like
Yes, definitively, yes.
Okay.
Yes, definitively. Even in post-occupancy, I believe in post-occupancy we have always a lot to do with really few investments, just with quick win energy-saving measures or very low investment. But sometimes by investing a bit more, yes, to implement energy efficiency project can bring really huge savings in the long term. So it's very good to always forecast the cash flow on several years, not only on 1 year or 2 years, on 10 years. And at this moment, you can realize the benefit of investing in energy efficient equipment.
Right. Okay. I know that we now have like a vast array of audience, that is like from APAC for sure, but also from other regions around the world. And I'm sure they are present in different parts of the process. So some of them are in the energy efficiency, some of them want to eagerly learn more about it. So maybe the first thing would be in understanding the importance of setting an energy baseline, let's say. So what would you say to all those people that are trying to learn this?
Yeah. So to explain the importance of setting an energy baseline, it's essential to remember the main objective of the energy baseline. The energy baseline aims to give a facility management team or the energy managers a tool to measure progress and quantify energy savings. So first, what is energy saving? Energy saving is a quantity of energy that doesn't exist and will never exist. So it cannot be measured. It can only be estimated. So the energy baseline aims to estimate energy savings as accurately as possible to monitor energy performance over time. So I give, to illustrate the importance of this tool, I will give a very simple example. Let's imagine, for example, I'm an energy manager working in an industrial facility in Southeast Asia. I don't have any energy baseline. In 2023, my plant consumed 5% more electricity than in 2022, but the production increased by 20% in 2023 versus 2022. Did I really overconsume 5% of electricity, or should have the plant consume much more electricity because there is significant increase in production? I cannot answer that question without an energy baseline. So the energy baseline gives an analytic tool that is easy to use and which allows the comparison of comparable things, meaning energy consumption, right? So setting an energy baseline is crucial for several reasons. First, measuring progress. It becomes possible to measure the effectiveness of energy efficiency initiatives and to track progress over time. It permits to identify opportunities and energy drifts. And by analyzing the energy baseline, it can reveal obviously opportunities for energy savings, for example, using some statistical indicators related to the energy baseline, but also to quickly identify the energy drift, to start investigation as soon as possible, right? To avoid having the energy drift lasting several months before we fix the issue. And also establishing an energy baseline demonstrates a commitment to energy management and sustainability, so it allows building owners and operators to track their progress towards energy reduction targets. So yeah, this is the main principles of the energy baseline. Why do we set an energy baseline? Why do we use it for? It's also important to highlight that the energy baseline can be done both in the design stage and in operation. It's done differently, it has different purposes, but both are possible. In the design stage, using energy modeling, that's the main tool to set the energy baseline in the energy modeling, because we don't have historical data from the past energy bills, for example, because we are just building, right, the asset. So it allows me to ensure that the energy consumption in operation are close to what has been calculated in the design stage. Commissioning stage is also crucial to ensure the transition and conformity between design and operation. So in short, the use of setting an energy baseline during the design stage is mainly to ensure proper implementation of the design strategies during the construction stage and to ensure efficient transition between construction and operations. And then energy baseline can be also set in operation because after a few years of operation, we can collect some data from the past years about energy consumption, obviously about climate data, production data, for example, for industrial facilities. And if we give really a more secured and detailed baseline depending on the relevant external parameters. So production data for industries, climate data for offices, number of guests, for example, for hotel buildings, number of visitors, for example, for airports. And this energy baseline set in operation will really permit to track progress and energy performance improvement over time. So that's the two main differences between the energy baseline set in the design stage and set in operation. So overall, setting energy baseline is really fundamental to effective energy management in buildings. For this, I recommend to use the IPMVP protocol, International Performance Measurement and Verification Protocol. It's an internationally approved standard for energy saving estimation.
Yeah, no, that's great. And it's a lot of information because like I said, I'm pretty sure there are so many people who are curious to learn about this and want to also improve on what they have been doing so far. So thank you for elaborately, explaining this. I think it's very, very important, specifically when you look at how this also affects the operational aspect of the building.
Yeah, the energy baseline is, if I can conclude, it's a very complex topic, a very powerful tool. But there's a sentence that I really like that I would like to quote is that you cannot improve what you don't measure, and the energy baseline is all about measuring to after be able to improve.
Absolutely. And I think if I was to also add one more thing, that's exactly what I would also say, because if I go to my next question, which is again about the net zero initiatives that everyone is moving towards, which means that you not only have to measure everything on the operational, but everything also, right from the very beginning of when you're designing a building itself, like from architects who need to understand the importance of what the design is, what materials are used, and then moving forward into the detailed aspect of the design and then the construction that happens. So yeah, it's very, very important. And I think that line that you said, what you can't measure, you can't improve, applies basically to understand carbon as a whole.
Yeah. Totally agree.
Okay, I think we have some time for one last question, which would be because this is a very interesting conversation. So from my side, my last question, again, as I said, was there are now so many organizations around the world moving towards net zero carbon and energy. So looking at both embodied and operational in APAC, maybe as a part from your side about what would be the role of energy management in these initiatives that are being taken place by different countries and organizations around the world.
Yeah. Yes. So first to give a bit of a definition. So by moving towards achieving net zero carbon and energy, basically a company takes the commitment to move to states where the organization balances the amount of carbon emission it produces with the amount of carbon emission it removes from the atmosphere or offset in different ways. So achieving net zero energy means that the total energy consumed by the company is equal to or less than the amount of renewable energy generated or obtained through carbon offset, for example. So it's about reducing its carbon emission and offsetting the remaining ones by renewable energy production or carbon credits. So for this, the various strategies for achieving this objective are mainly on energy efficiency improvements, energy management. On this, I believe, plays a crucial role in achieving net zero carbon and energy by optimizing energy use across operations, buildings, and facilities. So this involves conducting energy audits, implementing energy-saving technologies, upgrading equipment for greater efficiency, and also educating employees about energy conservation practices. I think we should not neglect the fact of raising awareness to the people, to the employees. And for these companies, use tools and frameworks such as the Greenhouse Gas Protocol, ISO 50001 track progress, set targets, and transparently communicate their environmental performance. It's also about renewable energy adoption. We already talked a bit about this, but transitioning to renewable energy sources such as solar, wind, geothermal power is a key strategy for achieving net zero energy. And companies may invest in on-site renewable energy generation or procure renewable energy from off-site sources through power purchase agreement or renewable energy certificates. Right. And then last thing to do, I would say, is offsetting emission. In cases where complete elimination of emission is not feasible, companies may offset the remaining carbon emissions by investing in carbon offset projects, such as reforestation, renewable energy projects, carbon capture and storage initiatives. So these projects really help to mitigate the company's overall carbon footprint, but I think the chronology is very important. First, we need to reduce the energy consumption as much as we can. So for this, really, energy management plays a crucial role, such as all energy efficiency project. Then renewable energy production to offset locally on-site what we can offset, and then last thing is to offset through carbon offset project. So achieving net zero carbon and energy is really a long-term commitment that requires ongoing effort, investment, and innovation. So companies must really fully consider sustainability into their corporate strategies and decision-making processes.
Absolutely. And if I was to add also from the net zero carbon part, like on the embodied part on top of what you just said, it's basically, again, understanding, from your portfolio of projects, like for bigger organizations, what has been constructed so far, like understanding your supply chain emissions as well for scope 3, understanding also carbon from like understanding embodied carbon specifically from the materials used in construction before the building is being built, and then on top of that the energy aspect that you just mentioned. How do you measure that? Because all of this is going to contribute to you and the objective of getting net zero, which is basically going to go towards your GHG target that you have set for the organization.
Yeah, my answer was mainly focused on scope 1 and scope 2, but obviously you're right. Scope 3 must not be neglected in the net zero achievement. So it's a very significant and big topic to consider. So.
Absolutely. All right. I think we might need to stop with the discussion that we have. But if I can ask you maybe, Martin, to summarize then from what we had, like in terms of questions, the 3 key takeaways for our audience that have joined in live from different platforms, what would they be if you have to summarize them?
So first one, as I just said a bit earlier, is that you cannot improve what you don't measure. So for this, monitoring is really key in reducing the operational carbon footprint of an asset. Second point is to always consider, you already said it, Aditi, in the background, but I fully agree with this, that we need to consider the building in its lifetime. So design stage and operation should really work together in closer cooperation to also find the best compromise between embodied carbon footprint and operational carbon footprint, because at the end of the day, the objective is really to release the less possible amount of carbon to the atmosphere. So it's really important to have the global overview on carbon with operational and embodied. And then for existing assets, I would say that we never reach the point where we can say, okay, I just finished the job, my energy consumption is already good, because energy drift always happen and will always happen. So it's really a continuous work, and this operational carbon reduction approach is a marathon. This is what I can say.
No, I think you've summarized it very well. That's great. Thank you so much, Martin, for this. And it's been a great
You're
discussion.
welcome. Thanks to you.
Thank you so much, Martin. That was really insightful, and I hope that everyone heard about it. Moving forward to the next slide. Uh, so before we jump to the live Q&A section, if one-click LCS sounds like a solution for your needs, our business team of carbon experts would love to provide you a tailored demo to show you how our software might work in action for you. So if you are watching today's event from Livestream, you will shortly see a live poll asking if you would like a one-click LCA business team member to contact you to book a custom demo and get advice about one-click LCA. So if you are dialing from Livestream, you will see a poll asking if you want our business team to contact you to schedule a free custom demo of one-click LCA. And so in case you are interested in booking a demo with us and get advice on decarbonization in buildings, infrastructure, or construction, just click yes in the poll that you see in the Livestream environment. And if you are joining us from LinkedIn, you can click on the link that is being shared, and by clicking that, you can book a demo with us. I would like to mention that we have a team of dedicated carbon experts with engineering and scientific education and experience, similar to your own, with who have intelligent and productive conversation about decarbonization. So again, if you would like our business team of carbon experts to contact you to schedule a custom demo, just click on yes onto the poll, and we will make sure to reach out to you and set up a call to discuss how we can help you. So moving forward to finally next slide. For the moment we all have been waiting for, we begin now a live Q&A questions. Just in case if you have any other last minute questions, don't hesitate to drop these in the comment section of Livestream or LinkedIn, and our moderators will pipe these questions over to you. So let's start with our first question. Martin, so I would like the first question we have, which I would like to ask you, is that do you have any tips on operation carbon reduction and increased ROI from modeling fagates and HVAC systems?
Yeah. So on this question, so on operation carbon reduction, energy modeling is a very powerful tool to optimize building energy performance in the design stage. Concerning facade modeling, obviously, say the technical specification of the glazing are very important. Thermal conductivity, solar factor, shading devices, and so. But also where to locate the windows, for example, which orientation, and test basically several window to wall ratio, for example, to find the good balance. So energy modeling really allows to test several strategies and see which one is the most efficient. And then it's all about for each strategy to assess the saving provided by the strategy and to assess return investments. Obviously, more, for example, considering the glazing, more efficient glazing obviously will lower the energy consumption, but it's always good to assess the return on investment, or I would say the return on over investment from efficient glazing to a conventional glazing, to really give all the keys to the client to choose what's the most suitable for him, because the most efficient glazing will not obviously be the one providing the shortest payback period. So this is why it's always good to have the balance between cost and saving, and yes, then all the interest of the energy modeling is to test several strategies to have the most passive design. So meaning reducing the thermal demand, the thermal cooling demand or heating demand of the building. And concerning HVAC systems, it's the same principle. The idea is always to test several strategies to control the equipment the closest possible to the energy needs. So, for example, it can be CO2 sensors for fresh air, ambient temperature sensors for fine coil units, using VSD for motors, and all of these strategies can be tested in the model to ensure that to quantify the results and the interest of each strategy.
All right. Thank you for answering this question, Martin. We move to the next question. And the next question we have is, what are the challenges when it comes to balancing operational carbon footprint and energy efficiency?
Yes. So when we talk about energy efficiency, we talk about operational carbon footprint. So climate change is relating to the amount of carbon released to the atmosphere. It's key to always have in mind if a decision gives negative balance of carbon released to the atmosphere, we need to reduce the global carbon footprint compared to the initial situation, right? So the embodied carbon footprint of a project is the amount of carbon released during the project's whole life cycle, but accounted for once. The operational carbon footprint is the amount of carbon linked to energy consumption. So it's released every year during the project lifetime, 50, 60, 70 years. In operations, finding the balance can be really complex. Involves really multidisciplinary skills. For example, replacing air source heat pump, for example, with a more efficient one, if the equipment is not at the end of its lifetime, is not always relevant, because yes, the energy saving will reduce the operational carbon footprint of the equipment in the building, but the manufacturing of the equipment and the use of, for example, also refrigerant fluids, for example, for heat pumps, have really significant embodied carbon footprint. So if the lifetime, in summary for this case, the lifetime of the equipment is 15 years, is the embodied carbon footprint balanced by the reduction of the operational carbon footprint during the 15 years? So it implies life cycle analysis and energy engineering, so it's a complex topic. But if the answer is yes, then the project makes sense in terms of carbon footprint. If not, then we should probably wait for the end of the lifetime of the equipment before replacing it, which in my opinion always makes more sense financially and in terms of sustainability.
Great. Thank you for answering that as well. Really great information there, Martin. Next question we have is around embodied carbon. So like embodied carbon and like operational carbon is currently not properly assessed or regulated globally. So how can infra projects account for embodied carbon and at what stages?
So yes, indeed there is I agree. There's a big difference between the assessment of the operational carbon footprint and embodied carbon footprint, based on the fact that it's way more complicated to collect the data to assess the embodied carbon footprint, right? Because for operational carbon footprint, it's actually quite straightforward. The building owners, the operators of the building, they get the energy bill. Then we have really clear data for almost every country on the local carbon content, for example, of electricity on the local grids. For embodied carbon for embodied carbon assessments, it relies mainly on the EPD that we can collect on the different markets. And depending on the maturity of the markets of the suppliers, of the local suppliers, we have some markets who have a lot of EPD and very accurate data, some of the ones where it's more complicated. So it's always possible to come the embodied carbon footprint, just it will implies more research work to actually find all the data concerning the different material that will be implemented in the project. And at what stages? I believe at all stages, and the earliest is the better to actually have impacts in lowering the embodied carbon footprint, because at the end of at the end of design stage, usually it's really too late to make any modifications. So I believe that the embodied carbon assessment should be done at the early stage of a project.
And if I can add on top of what Martin just said, so actually the question is amazing because it's something that, you know, I, even while talking to customers, get asked quite a lot. So I'm also talking about this from experience as well. So yes, embodied carbon is something that happens now. As I said before, it's not something that you can control once the infrastructure project or the building has been built. You can control it to a certain extent, but you know the impact that you can have before is more and far more larger than later on in the stage. So you can actually understand the impact of embodied carbon from the early design concept stage and right until or even after the construction stage as well. But it's at the very beginning in the concept level that you're able to estimate this. And we do have, like at One Click LCA, that's exactly what you can do using the tool, not just for building projects, but also for infrastructure projects, because that is exactly what will help you to understand and perhaps even visualize what is the amount of embodied carbon that might come if we are to, you know, go for a particular infrastructure project or a building itself. And then what can we do to sort of mitigate or improve the design as a going forward into the stages of construction that come along. So you can do it at any stage, right from the very beginning, and then from there on optimize your design further on, and then take the principles that Martin was talking about energy efficiency, looking at operational carbon, etc., into incorporating it into your detailed design and then further into construction stages. So you're right, it's not properly assessed. There is very little regulation also on the APAC segment for that matter, and the amount of data as well is also quite limited in a way. So you really have to build up, but that's how we as a one-click LCA software platform can help you over here.
Great. Thank you for answering this question, Aditi and Martin. We have some other questions as well. So next question we have is MEP equipment accounts for a significant portion of operation and embodied carbon for buildings. How do you see the industry can improve it to achieve net zero? Martin, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, so yes, indeed, MEP equipment, I agree, account for a really significant portion of the operation and embodied carbon. So I would say to topic to improve the operational carbon footprint, it's quite for the MEP manufacturer, it's really to reach the best efficiency as possible for the equipment, but it's not all on the MEP equipment manufacturer. I think it's a lot on the architects, on the sustainability consultant to find how to implement passive design strategies to actually reduce the cooling demand, the heating demand, the energy demand globally of the building. Because what is the definition of energy efficiency? The energy efficiency is about consuming what we need, okay? But we cannot consume less than what we need. So it's a lot about reducing the need, right? And then we can reach efficiency, very high efficiency today. And I hope it will keep improving on this. But it's also a lot on the other ends. And then for the embodied carbon footprint of MEP equipment, significant topics about currently is about refrigerant fluids, specifically for cooling equipment, chillers, VFV, and so on. So there are quite a lot of progress currently with refrigerant fluid that have a GWP, a global warming potential, neutral, or at least much lower than we currently have in most of the cooling equipment. So I really hope that the industry can push for the use and the democratization of this cooling equipment with with low global warming potential, refrigerant-free for cooling equipment such as chillers, because I think it will be really a great gift to the climate.
Yeah, and sorry, Mohammed, if I can just add for that last question, for embodied carbon, I think it would be also useful if we have more and more product-specific MEP-related data, that comes up, because this is something that the industry really, really needs to take into account specifically, because it's a big target that we have to move towards in reduction for both operational and embodied carbon.
Yes.
Great. Thanks for adding that, Aditi. So we have two more questions left, and we are going to quickly get your answers on that since we are short on time. So next question, Martin, I would like you to briefly answer is the green building certifications such as LEED V5 and is bound to put more focus on climate change and embodied carbon. How do you think APAC countries are ready for this?
Okay, so first I will start by answering that I'm not an expert in green building certification. But what I can answer from the question is if it put more focus on climate change and embodied carbon, I believe it will be a challenge in APAC, linked to what Aditi mentioned just earlier, is that in some markets, and I think it's not a surprise if I tell you that in many countries in Asia, it's hard to assess embodied carbon footprints because of a lack of data from material suppliers. Obviously, it will be a challenge. I guess also that it's an opportunity for industrial, for material suppliers, because any industrial, any brand of material that can actually provide accurate EPD to their clients, to the consultants, obviously for a building owner that wants to have a LEED building LEED certified, if he can purchase material with accurate EPD, will be obviously benefit for him to get certification. So I think globally, APEC countries are not ready, but it's an opportunity, and I hope it will. I hope a lot of industrial will grab the opportunity to improve on this.
Yeah, exactly. I would echo the same as what Martin said. And I think there have been certain changes that are coming in, also on a national level. That's why the need to move towards net zero national policies as well overall for APAC countries. But it's still an opportunity, like he said, that they need to grasp on to actually implement it and make it mandatory.
All right, that's great. Thank you for answering both of these questions. It was really great learning about all these things. I would like to inform everyone to visit One Click LCA Academy, where we offer tons of valuable courses and trainings for everyone as part of our global goal to educate 1 million low carbon professionals by 2030. So we also have a pre-construction LCA bootcamp coming up in summer 2024 that is starting from May 27 to May 31st. And to learn more about our bootcamp, you can scan the QR code showing on your screen, or you can also click on the link that has been shared by our moderators in the chat and on live stream and in the comment section of LinkedIn. And by clicking there, you can go to our page where you can register yourself for our demo. So I would request everyone to register for our bootcamp, get certified today, and you can learn all about our decarbonization in the construction sector and how to deliver building LCS and whole life carbon studies. Next slide, please. So finally, we come to the end, and we are always happy to hear from you. So if you would like to contact us, please visit www.oneclicklca.com or just click the link which is being shared by our moderators in the comments. And you can learn more about our construction and manufacturing LCA software by writing us directly via sales@oneclicklca.com. I hope you found this episode insightful and you learned a lot of different great insights and learnings. Uh, until next time, we would like to thank you for your participation, and we really appreciate your participation in this episode. So stay tuned with us. We will be coming with more new Carbon Expert Live episode. Thank you everyone for joining. Thank you, Martin. Thank you, Aditi, for all the great insights.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.